The date is the 14th of March 2021. My name is James Cole and I'm here with Claire Cole portraying Rachel Cole. Today we're filming this psychodynamic therapy video. Hello Rachel, welcome back to another session.
Hello.
So what I'd like to discuss with you today is the theory behind your depression, in the hopes that it might make it feel more manageable because you know what's going on inside your head.
Okay. I've never really thought about there being a reason or a cause. I just thought it happened for no reason.
Yes, in psychodynamic therapy, there is always a reason behind a person's behaviour, thoughts and feelings. Alright then, let's get started. So, your depression is causing you to see the world in a distorted view. This leads to the cognitive triad, a triangle of three things in a repeating pattern. For instance, your negative views about the world may lead to negative views about yourself, and that may lead to negative views about others. As you can imagine, seeing the world in such a light isn't good, as ultimately the world isn't the way the depression makes you perceive it. The only way to break the cycle is by having conscious knowledge of what's making you think like that. Are you with me so far, or am I going too fast? Do you have any questions?
You know, the depression,
Yes.
could you explain where it comes from?
Of course. It develops over time when you're exposed to negative things like people being rude or bullying you. It then develops into an even worse depression as you start thinking in a negative way without anyone forcing you to.
Okay, I understand a bit more now.
Alright, so basically this triad traps you in a cycle, and the only way to stop it is to know that you don't have to listen to the thoughts of the cycle.
Okay, I get it more now, I think.
Good, I'm glad you're keeping up. Alright then. So, depression can lead to something called negative self-schema, where people who are depressed will have false or warped expectations and pessimistic views of themselves, situations and others.
I think that might be what's happening to me.
Okay, so I'll just reel off some of the things that might cause negative self-schema. The death of a parent or guardian, parental rejection, criticism, overprotection, and bullying at school from peers, exclusion from groups, psychological abuse, and various other things like that. Do you think you might have experienced any of these in your earlier life that could have caused you to develop these feelings?
I don't think it was at school, but I am being ostracised by some people at work who they don't understand mental health issues, as well as my boss who does everything he can to annoy and embarrass me.
That sounds like a probable cause of your negative self-schema. Okay, now I'd like to talk about what negative self-schema can lead to. Negative self-schema can lead to things called cognitive distortions. This is when your brain is tricked into thinking a certain way due to a hormone imbalance. This can be caused by your depression. This is likely while you're on medication for it, and it seems to be improving over time. Cognitive distortions can lead to a number of things like arbitrary interference, selective abstraction, overgeneralization and more.
So, you think my depression is causing me to think in the wrong way because my brain doesn't produce enough hormones?
Yes and no. Depression can cause a hormone imbalance in the brain in extreme cases, and I wouldn't call the way you're thinking wrong. The depression is just magnifying things that are already bad, not just making things up. Do you understand?
Yes, I think so.
Good. You need to know that your state of mind can improve. Now, things like overgeneralization may be an issue in your case, as it causes you to draw conclusions as to what you think is happening without proper cause to. This can make vast impacts on your mood depending on the situation. In your case, for instance, it would likely be you focusing on things that you may get wrong, or one person being hateful to you, and this then makes you feel like you're stupid or like everyone in the building is like that. And obviously that isn't true.
I can understand that. I do feel like that sometimes.
It's quite common for this to happen in people who are depressed. Believe me, it's not just you. Arbitrary interference is likely another cognitive distortion that's affecting you. It leads you to pull conclusions from nothing with little to no evidence. This can be quite bad, as it can lead to spirals in your life when you feel like everyone and everything is against you. In your case, it doesn't seem to be quite that bad. Luckily, you received treatment and are on the road to recovery. meaning unless you stop taking the tablets, the chances are you won't get to that stage.
Well, that's one good thing then.
Yes, it's good that you got treated, as for you, arbitrary interference probably isn't as bad. However, you might have the odd day, as everyone does, where you simply don't feel good. Lastly, I'd like to talk about selective abstraction, which is focusing on one aspect of a situation, usually the negative aspect, and ignoring other aspects of a situation. This can be quite detrimental, as it can mean you feel the negative aspects of every situation and conversation. This can mean your opinion of people and how they act may be affected.
That does sound like what's going on with me.
Now that we've identified some of the things that are happening because of your depression, are you a bit more comfortable in feeling that these thoughts don't have to define who you are?
Yes, definitely, and thank you for explaining it.
It's fine, but I'm mindful we're coming to the end of the session, and I'd like to sum up what we've gone over today and what I'd like you to think about.
Okay, that's fine.
So today we explored how your thoughts, feelings and behaviour can be affected by your depression. We spoke about the cognitive triad with the negative views of the world, yourself and other people. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember, and they all lead to one another.
Yes, that's right. We also spoke about negative self-schema, seeing the world through a different, more pessimistic perspective, leading you to think differently.
That's the part that sounds like what's happening with me.
Yes, that's right. We spoke about how it's usually caused by trauma, like the loss of a loved one or ostracisation at school. Lastly, we also spoke about cognitive distortions, like selective abstraction, picking and choosing the negative parts of a situation and ignoring the broader perspective and positive side.
Yes, I remember. It's been very insightful to look at how depression can change you and have such an impact on your life.
Yes, I find it very intriguing that something no one can see can change you so drastically. This was a good session, I feel. We made a lot of good progress and you seem to have kept up and learned more about what's happening in your head. Sadly, we're at the end of the session now though, so goodbye and I hope to see you in our next session.
That's great. It's been really helpful to learn about all of this, and thank you. I'll see you in the next session.